What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield holding it down for us in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We are brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GOJO15. Got a great show for you guys, as always. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us that 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday on DraftKingsNetwork.com, DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, and Roku from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Fun guest today, Ross Tucker, our buddy here from DraftKings Network, former NFL star. You can hear him covering NFL for Westwood One like my father, but this week going to actually be out covering the Army-Navy game. If you're looking for your college football fix, we got it. Ross has got it there. Isaiah Hodgins, wide receiver for the New York Giants, also going to join us there as we check in on their season in New York. But Dad, last night, against all odds, actually decent game, and the over hits in the first half as the New England Patriots get a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers and push them outside of the playoff picture right now. Dad, as improbable a moment as I could have imagined was the Patriots managing to put up 21 points in the first half. Now, they didn't score any more after that, but what an offensive flurry there. Al Michaels had to be dizzy.
They reverted back in the second half by being shut out, so that, said, okay, let's not get too ahead of the game. First, a guy that was your coach for a short time, man, Mike Tomlin, wow, he lost us to the Cardinals and now to the Patriots. We'll get to him and what's got to be going on with that team. And also, who's this Zeke Elliott guy? All of a sudden, with Ramondre Stevenson out, so they obviously are hurting there, not having him. So Zeke Elliott carries the ball 22. Now, he didn't have a great statistical night as far as yards per carry, a little over 3 yards, 22 carries, though, but 7 catches for 72 yards. Zeke, showing up again. So, and Bailey Zappi, the last time a quarterback threw 3 touchdown passes in the first half, you knew it was going to be Tom Brady. You just didn't know what year. It was 2018. So Bailey Zappi, with so many backup quarterbacks this year, some consistently being good, some statistically being horrible. Bailey gets a shot, who's been bad and plays. Well, listen, when you break the game down, it wasn't like he was firing on all cylinders. Let's also be honest. But he got the job done. And the defense helped by giving him a short field on an interception, as well as poor Mitch Trubisky was getting booed off the field, and they started chanting for Mason Rudolph. I mean, How awful is that? I want to be on the side of saying maybe they were just chanting Mason Rudolph because of the name Rudolph and it being Christmas season, right?
Yeah, that's the kindest read of it. I can't remember the last time I heard a player get booed by his home crowd that early in the game and that often. Like, once the interception hit, it was like, Dad, when an NBA player on an opposing team comes into an arena after having like a really hard foul against the other team's star player, like Draymond Green, when he goes into a lot of road arenas, every time they touch the ball, you get booed. That was how it felt with Mitch, where every pass he attempted after that interception, he got booed viciously. That Steelers defense, another one of those groups that's going to be able to file for hazard pay at the end of the year, because, Dad, were it not for them serving this game up on a silver platter, really defense and special teams between the interceptions and then the punt block in the second half, this game is nowhere near even close enough to party. So it is a lot like, Dad, on a different level, what we talked about with Philadelphia, where they'd been living on the edge, the Philadelphia Eagles, for so long, then they ran into the 49ers. The Steelers had kind of been living on the edge of, we didn't know how they were winning these games. And now in the last two, Matt Canada sitting somewhere at home with his feet up right now, kicking up and enjoying a drink, watching what's become of the Steelers offense, albeit with their backup quarterback.
So we have heard the Pittsburgh Steelers faithful chant two names this year. First, to fire Matt Canada, and then to put in Mason Rudolph. So times is a tough in Pittsburgh. This is a team that was, solidly in that 5 slot. And like I said, their last 2 losses to the Cardinals and the Patriots, 2 teams going nowhere. And their final 4 games are the Colts, who are in the playoffs right now, the Bengals, who may be still fighting for a spot. We'll talk about that. The Seahawks, I believe, who are in at this point right now. Oh no, I think they're still on the outside looking in, but trying to get in. And then obviously the Ravens, who are leading the division. So not getting any easier for this team that we thought may be able to limp into the playoffs, but we didn't think much of it going past. And I don't know, Mike, if it's answering any questions on the New England side. I think the quarterbacks, both Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, are auditioning for other teams. Would you agree with that? And that's where you are, and they know it as well. I mean, that's why when we talk about meaningless game to statistics, they're meaningful to the players and not just the quarterbacks, to all players out there, whether you're established at that team or on the fence. Are you playing for that team or another team? So there are certainly individual things that you're playing for.
I mean, I think for both of them, you're hoping to audition maybe to be the backup for whatever guy New England brings in next year. Like if you're Bailey Zappi, that could be your lot in life. Mac Jones, it's probably going to be a different looking uniform for you next year. Add some new issue gear to the closet. But yeah, it's to the point, Dad, where I feel like most Patriots fans are looking up and going, oh, damn, we accidentally won a game. Like most Patriot fans, I'd imagine, are in draft pick mode, because the other side of this that I kept thinking during the game is, what if Bill Belichick, this was all he needed, and he rattles off this insane list of wins, and down the stretch, they play, I think, the Chiefs and the Bills. So I think it's Chiefs, Bills, and Broncos, and 2 of those games are on the road, so they're not going to win these. But the funniest version of the outcome is they rattle off an unprecedented win streak led by a defense that continues to go out there and give other teams a really bad time. Mitch Trubisky was very confused by what the New England defense was throwing at him blitz-wise, but Bill Belichick winning out the rest of these games, realizing, I still have more to give, deciding he wants to stick around in New England. Bob Kraft letting him because he sees signs after a couple of big wins, and they get to continue this cycle of pain.
Yeah, and you look at Pittsburgh, too. They scored, Mitch went on a 1-yard run, I think it was, to get themselves within 3 points with like almost 12 minutes to go in the game. So they had a chance. I thought at that point, okay, Pittsburgh's going to get the lead. New England, who has not scored in the second half after a big first half, is not going to be able to come back on that. I thought Pittsburgh was going to be able to pull it out. Because for New England, they've lost. They've, I think, only been blown out twice, maybe, if I'm looking quickly. 38-3 by the Cowboys and 34-zip by the Saints. Other than that, it's been pretty close games. They just haven't executed very well. And Bailey Zappi with 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Hunter Henry on his birthday, so congrats to him. 2 really nice passes and catches there as well. How about this? They completed the first pass of the season on an over 30-yard pass, air pass. Got to be 30 yards in the air. Juju Smith-Schuster catches it for 37 yards, Previous to that, they were 0 for 18. It's the first long pass completion over 30 yards in the air of the season. I guess which isn't shocking for how bad this offense is. I mean, you look at this, you look at it and you think both these teams are kind of the same, right, of how bad they are right now, save for that New England defense. And it's Pittsburgh still fighting for a playoff spot, which just makes you scratch your head like you can't believe that the team we're seeing out there is going to be able to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from last night, right? The Patriots aren't going to magically fix this. Their schedule down the stretch is tough and full of actual contenders, teams that could be in the playoffs, and things that are going to make winning like this a lot harder because you're right, the Pittsburgh Steelers always felt sustainable. So, Dad, as we look at that playoff picture surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers and a bunch of other teams that are kind of in that bucket, we're getting around the time of year where we're going to start to hear all the buzzwords show up. Things like, oh, the team nobody wants to see right now, or teams that are in the hunt for the playoffs down the stretch. And so coming off of this game, especially looking at the AFC playoff picture, do we now get to downgrade Pittsburgh out of in the hunt? Does Mike Tomlin and that defense still deserve enough of our respect to say, hey, it's possible? Or at least in my thought process is, as long as Mitch Trubisky is the quarterback, Dad, I can't go anywhere near them in that conversation. There is nothing to fear but fear itself when facing the Pittsburgh Steelers offense at this point, because while everyone was excited to get Matt Canada out of town, that's only viable when you've got a quarterback that you trust back there. And with Kenny Pickett, the one thing, and I saw Bill Barnwell wrote a great article talking about this situation, and the biggest difference between Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky is Kenny Pickett might have flaws. He's not going to turn the football over for you.
Right.
Mitch Trubisky, we saw that last night, is ready to give the other team opportunities to put hands on that thing at any juncture through the game. So as long as that's the case, this defense is not otherworldly enough to be able to overcome that over and over. So I would downgrade the Steelers outside of the playoff hunt right now for that reason.
Completely agree. That's why I always think the most interesting column is the turnover column. Did the quarterback throw an interception or did he fumble the ball? You know, and we're talking about a year like this year where Jalen Hurts is actually hurting there. 10 interceptions and he's fumbled the ball 4 times as well. Can always hurt you, but they're so good in other spots. And Jalen is still obviously a great quarterback, but he's had the turnovers like Dak had last year. Going now to what you said, Mike, I will say this. I will not only downgrade. For a lot of the year, it's been 3 teams in the North getting into the playoffs. I think Pittsburgh and Cleveland both are going to miss the playoffs. I do not think they're getting in, both of them. Listen, the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, a quarterback situation in Cleveland, plus you had Denzel Ward miss a couple games. He had his shoulder coming back. Myles Garrett has the shoulder, so how much effectiveness does he lose on that side of the ball? You've started 4 quarterbacks, and Joe Flacco came out throwing in the last game, but they end up losing that game. I think that those 2 teams will be out of the playoffs. And I think the fight for the 3 spots is going to be between the Colts, who I think are going to make it, the Colts, Denver, and Buffalo. I think those, and Houston, I'm sorry, I would put Houston in there as well. I would say those 4 teams are fighting for those 3 wild card spots. I think Pittsburgh and Cleveland are going to fall out of this just because of the attrition, especially at the quarterback position.
So you don't think the Jake Browning experience continues to be as transcendent as we saw last week then, with the Bengals sitting right there in that mix between the Broncos and the Buffalo Bills currently at the 10 spot in the AFC?
I don't think it holds, Mike. I don't think the consistency holds. Where I'm talking about Gardner Minshew has been there the entire year. And quite honestly, for this year, if you want to talk wins and losses, he probably would have been a better option than Anthony Richardson anyway as a rookie learning the ropes, right? I mean, remember, C.J. Stroud is an exception, not a rule. So with Gardner Minshew in there, they're a little more settled with a veteran quarterback. You have obviously Josh Allen and Buffalo, and you have Russell Wilson in Denver who's having a heck of a year, as well as their defense. So, and Houston with C.J. Stroud and what that team is doing. So, yes, I trust those teams and those quarterbacks more than Jake Browning being consistently as good as we saw, because we'll see that one real good game and go, okay, maybe they're set. And then they'll come back down to earth a little bit, and that's the expectation there. So those are my 4 for 3, and I'm not sure yet who's going to end up on the outside looking in. But I do think the Colts are going to make it, though. I do think they're going to be one of the teams making it.
Yeah, I think they are certainly consistent enough and have been, and they're going to be that interesting matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals team, where I'm always worried about list games, Dad. Anytime you got a quarterback or a player that has one of those games where they come out of nowhere and all of a sudden they end up on a list, and the performance that Jake Browning had in that game, how efficient he was, how productive he was, over 300 yards passing, all the accolades there. I always worry about regression when it's a player that has been previously unknown, and that's been Jake Browning's story. So I'm with you on that one. It's interesting you bring up the Bills because they are simultaneously in the hunt. And I also think, Dad, because I think we're about to get full-blown Super Saiyan Josh Allen, they're the team no one wants to see in the AFC at the very least, because the offense hasn't stopped being great statistically. And Josh Allen, when he decides to throw caution to the wind, be a guy that's going to be near double-digit rushing attempts, do the things he did against the Eagles, and I think because every game is a playoff game from them here on out, that's what we're going to get more of. That's the last thing you want to see, because with that guy at the helm playing the way that he did the last game, they can beat anybody on their schedule, including the Chiefs coming up this weekend.
Yeah, and obviously a big test for them, as you just mentioned, with the Chiefs, who are coming off their 27-19 loss to the Green Bay Packers. So, this is a big game. I still think they could actually lose this game, and then I think they could run at the end of the season. They play the Patriots, the Raiders, the Bengals, and the Chargers. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong schedule. That's my fault there. For Buffalo after this game, it is difficult. It is the Cowboys, the Chargers, it's the Patriots and the Dolphins. So they have a couple of tough ones left. So they're going to have to show their wear in this to be able to make it to the playoffs. Do you go back and agree with me? You think Pittsburgh and Cleveland are going to be out, or you still give them a chance to be in? I guess I'll say, how many teams do you have fighting for those 3 wild card spots?
Yeah, I would say I have a lot more faith in Cleveland. Like, I think Pittsburgh now, this is sort of the beginning of the end, and this is kind of like people have talked about with Jordan Travis, where they said give him the Heisman because clearly he was important enough to get you left out of the playoffs. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe you do the joking Kenny Pickett MVP argument because the offense clearly looks different without him on the field in a way that I think is going to keep this team out of the playoff discussion. I would say you're right. I agree. I think Indianapolis makes it. I think the Houston Texans absolutely make it. And then I would say the Denver Broncos are probably the other one in the mix for that right now. Cincinnati, I'm going to have to see the ball go through the basket again there. But I think by default, I might keep the Browns in that. A lot of that's going to be dependent on this week, Dad. I think they've got a really interesting test against the we'll talk about banged up Trevor Lawrence. Somehow, like, how are you not dead after the hit that we saw last week? But if you're looking for a get-right game for a Myles Garrett-led Cleveland defense that had zero sacks against the Los Angeles Rams last week, this Jags offensive line and a quarterback that's less mobile than normal could be the antidote.
Yeah, I do worry about Myles Garrett, though, and that shoulder and his effectiveness because you rely so much on a guy who was, in that list of defensive players of the year as the season was going on and how he was playing. So let's see how this goes. One more kind of side note on Pittsburgh. It's obviously we talk about it a lot with Mike Tomlin. He's been coaching for 97 years and has never had a losing season. So does that end? I mean, they're 7-6 right now. They finished with the Colts, as I talked about earlier. The Colts, the Bengals, the Seahawks, and the Ravens. Now, we'll have to wait and see if the Ravens are playing for anything. Maybe they might be locked into a seed by that point. So we'll have to see. Or, God forbid, if they need that win, how they're going to come out in that game. So 4 games left, and they're 1 game up on 500, and you can't be 500 anymore with 17 games. So you're either, a game below or a game above or better or worse than that. I have issues, serious doubts and concerns that it's going to be the first losing record for Mike Tomlin.
So Kenny Pickett got the tightrope surgery, so he could be back before season's end at some point, depending on how fast his recovery is from that. We've seen some pretty exemplary stuff from guys in that position. This is a lot like how I'm going to need to see it twice from Jake Browning before I'm going to bet that he's just going to be 300-yard passing performances every time. You're going to have to kill Mike Tomlin before I believe he is dead, and you're going to have to kill him twice. So I don't know how, but somehow he's going to wind up there. That is the deal with whatever deity he has in place. And until further notice, Mike Tomlin's above 500 in my peanut brain. Dad, real quick on the other side for the NFC, because we're talking about teams in the hunt there. This one I think a lot more interesting. You look at the teams, the 5, 6, 7, 8 slots. Dallas at the 5 slot right now behind the Eagles in the division. Right. And then Minnesota, Green Bay, Los Angeles, and Seattle. I think the list stops there because you get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after that. While everyone in the NFC South is technically in play, spiritually, I don't see any of them as contenders, so I'm not going to talk about them in the hunt category here.
Wait, so you said who again?
Well, I really think everyone that we've got down into the 9 slot there. So Minnesota, Green Bay, Los Angeles, and Seattle all have a realistic shot to do this right now.
Yes.
The NFC, it has got some interesting depth this year in a way that we didn't see.
Well, listen, we know we got 4 in for sure, right? With San Francisco, I guess I shouldn't say Atlanta yet, but the NFC South winner, Detroit, and Philly and Dallas are both going to be in, right? So yeah. we know that. So I'm with you on the rest. Minnesota, Green Bay, the Rams, and Seattle, I agree, are the 4, and I do agree that it stops there. It'll be a fun run until the end. I'm very excited to see Justin Jefferson back on the field with Josh Dobbs for Minnesota to see what direction that can go. While they haven't played in a game together yet, they have practiced together, and Justin Jefferson has talked about them practicing together and trying to, get on a good page for when they go into the game this week. So that's one of the matchups I'm really looking forward to see, or duos, I should say.
I do think it's also a tight race for the team no one wants to see in the NFC between Green Bay and the Los Angeles Rams. The Packers and Jordan Love and his trajectory through the season, how some of those young skill weapons are showing up. But Matthew Stafford being back in the lineup for this Rams team that is young and is fast in a lot of positions and has another great opportunity this weekend to potentially show that off. Very interesting out for both of them. And when you've got a veteran quarterback who's also been a Super Bowl winner, you throw that on top of the pile and add it to the equation.
GoJo and Golic Jon Rahm has reportedly become the richest athlete in the world after signing an eye-watering deal with LIV Golf on Thursday. Now, despite previously claiming that he would never jump ship to the Saudi circuit, he apparently put pen to paper on a massive deal, allegedly worth at least $500 million. Rahm confirmed the sensational move on Fox News himself.
As you can see now, it's official. This is me finally saying, after all the rumors, some of them were true, and I have officially joined LIV Golf. The money is great, obviously it's wonderful, but what I've said before is true. I do not play golf for the money. I play golf for the love of the game and for the love of golf. But as a husband, as a father, and as a family man, I have a duty to my family to give them the best opportunities and the most amount of resources possible. And that's where that comes in, right? Obviously, it is a factor, and it was an important one, obviously, in this decision.
So he said he doesn't do it for the money, and then he was like, but obviously I did it for the money.
I mean, just be honest. It was the factor. We all know that. I was just telling you guys off air, there was a pitcher years ago that signed a nice deal, and in the press conference said, this was about the money. I went for the most money. And I was like, thank you.
Respect.
For Jon Rahm, who has in the past said, everybody's free to make, in February of last year, everybody's free to make their own decision. It's as simple as that. All I can say is from somebody young like myself was the entire future ahead of him. It doesn't seem like a smart thing for me to make a move. The only appeal I see is monetary. And like I said, I don't play for the money all the time. I consider the PGA Tour has done an amazing job in giving us the best platform to us to perform. He doesn't like how LIV is played, the 54 holes, the shotgun start, and no cuts. He says, I want to compete against the best in the world. And this was in February. This wasn't that long ago. And then, guys, Mike, he went silent on everything. He dropped out of Rory and Tiger's indoor golf league, so everybody knew this was coming. Just say it, John. Just say it was about the money. It's the most ridiculous thing.
I was going to say, he did, but he blamed his family. He blamed his wife and kids. He said, I don't need this money, but they're looking at me like we need this money, and I have to be able to provide resources for my kids. Jon Rahm, who is, by the way, in his PGA Tour career, earned more than $51.5 million. I think the kids are eating all right. I think you can send them to private school on that. I don't know. I haven't done the quick math on that. I haven't had to worry about what the cost of sending kids to private elementary school is yet, or what college funds are going to look like.
I will say.
I was going to say, I'd imagine it's actually ludicrous right now,
insane.
which is its own separate conversation, by the way. But that being said, I don't worry about the Rahm's kids to be able, the ability to be able to attend those schools right now. The audacity, I hadn't seen that clip yet, and so the audacity to say, I don't play for the money, but as a father. Like we see all the time people do those bad faith. As a father of daughters, I understand what women are thinking. Yeah. He goes, as a father of humans, I need to take this blood money to play golf. I mean, that was his logic here. My God.
And this could prove to be a bigger thing. But quickly, again, one of the things he said, this was in February. To be honest, part of the format is not really appealing to me. Shotgun, 3 days to me is not a golf tournament. No cut. It's that simple. I want to play against the best in the world. That's the format I want. So, I mean, and now that that LIV and PGA are going to somehow combine, we still don't know how, right?
I was just going to say, Dad, does this make you feel more or less like that's going to happen? Because this seems like we've been waiting a long time since this announcement. Does this make you feel more or less like the PGA Tour and LIV are close to a deal? Yeah.
Do you know what LIV is doing? They're saying, okay, if this deal doesn't work out, we just fired off and got the number 3 player in the world. You know, and we are not going the other way, even though LIV has not gained traction from a television standpoint, a fan standpoint. It just hasn't yet. But they keep paying, and what this says is no matter what happens with the PGA, in my opinion, they're going to continue to open their wallet and try and grab guys.
Because there's no limit to the money.
There is no limit. And I'm sure guys who didn't want to do it before might be more inclined now to say, well, the PGA is going to merge with them, and we know that a lot of that is happening because of all the lawsuits nobody wants to go through. So since they're merging, they must accept what's going on, so we're now going to take their money. And in June, Now, this was all February. Then in June, just a few months ago, there was a clause, and they had kind of a firm agreement. And then that agreement was a clause that you couldn't poach, that you couldn't take from the other. But a month after that, they took the clause out.
Wow.
I mean, took it out. And so, as we said, Rahm's silence, Rahm dropping out of the Tiger Woods and Rory Indoor Golf League really started. Everybody said, oh, he's going. And we know he went for a whole everybody's got a price, right?
I thought it was interesting, though, to the tune of what happens next for the PGA and LIV. Hallie Ledbetter does a great job covering golf over at CBS Sports and I believe the PGA itself on like a lot of their social channels. You and I got to work an event with her at the Super Bowl last year when it was with Arizona, and she said that this is just her opinion. She thinks this actually means the PGA and LIV are close to getting this done because she said Jon Rahm is a guy who has in the past talked about how important the history of the tour is, how important something like the Ryder Cup is to him, and we know that's been a big sticking point for some of the LIV guys. And she doesn't believe, even for all the money, he would have made the move at this juncture if it meant forsaking those things after holding out this whole time. Because, Dad, there is the point of he was offered this money before. Like, this isn't new to him. Jon Rahm was obviously always a guy that the PIF fund and the Saudis were going to try and go after because he's one of the biggest names in golf, one of the best current guys out there. And so to take it at this juncture with what we've got up in the air as uncertainty, it is interesting to potentially read this as, he might know something about how close they are to the finish line and said, all right, I'll take advantage of the fact that I'd be able to grab this cash, but also might soon be able to still go and get points on the tour and then play in the Ryder Cup, which we know matters a lot to these guys.
Because right now, and going back to what you said, in February, he did have a meeting with Greg Norman, who runs LIV. And he said in that meeting, Norman just kept talking numbers, money. And Rahm was like, listen, I don't think it's happening now. Talk to my manager. But obviously didn't rule out the future, which we see the future of here. Be interesting the way it goes, because even with this close to an agreement, we don't know what the agreement is. We don't know what it's going to be, because remember that the LIV tournaments aren't accepted in the world rankings. It does not affect the majors. He won the Masters so he can play for life. And by winning the Masters, gave him a 5-year exemption to the PGA Championship, and he won the U.S. Open a few years ago. So he obviously is eligible to play in that. His Masters victory earned him 5-year exemption in the PGA Championship and the Open as well. So, and those have been separate anyway. So I don't know where this is going to go, but back to what you asked before, Mike, the big thing here is LIV is not stopping, because we don't know in this agreement what LIV is going to look like. But you can tell with the money they're still throwing out that they said, okay, if there's an agreement, great. If there's not an agreement, we will continue to go after your top players. It's one thing to grab, the older players, the Phil Mickelsons, Louis Oosthuizen, and Bubba Watson, but they have Dustin Johnson, they have Bryson DeChambeau, they have Brooks Koepka, now they have Jon Rahm, they have Cameron Smith. So they're gonna go after the top players and throw a lot of money around still.
And what we've seen is, outside of, Rory McIlroy, who's sort of in the face of this with him and Tiger on the PGA side, for everyone else, we kept wondering, would there be all this LIV PGA animosity when it got onto the course? And most of the guys that we've talked to in that time since then and heard talk publicly about that, it doesn't seem to be the case. The guys that were friends before this seem to be the guys that are friends after this.
And remember, the PGA players were mad at the PGA for making this announcement without letting them know. Rory dropped off the board, right? He's off the board that helps oversee. He talked about with tournaments and all being too busy and such, but he dropped off that board. So, a lot of the PGA players were all of a sudden like, well, wait a minute. We showed loyalty. They're getting all this money. Now we're going to have a partnership with them. And they're trying to talk about ways to get those guys money. We'll see. I have no idea if it's going to happen or not.
Yeah, it's part of all the lawyers and, all those legal fees behind closed doors that are getting hammered out right now as they try and go with this deal. And reeling after yet another high-profile PGA star heads to the LIV Tour.
GoJo and Golic. One of the great spectacles of college football is coming our way this weekend. That's right, I'm talking Army-Navy, baby. Okay, both teams 5-6 this season. Army currently favored by 3. And we've got the man calling the game for Westwood One Radio, friend of the program, Ross Tucker. He's in studio with us. We're so excited to have you here.
I'm very excited to be here. Let's do it. One of my favorite days of the year, every year. Love the Army-Navy game.
Yeah, Ross, this is a special one. So the 124th meeting of these teams, and I think it's interesting to think about this game in the context of everything we're currently seeing in college football. The sport has changed so much. It's dominated by realignment and the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. Ross, does it feel to you like this game is sort of preserved in amber in the midst of all this change?
GoJo, it's so funny that you say that. That was going to be my exact speech to you guys. in an era of all we talk about now is the transfer portal and NIL and realignment. First of all, because these football players are government employees, they're not allowed to get NIL. They are not allowed to get NIL. Secondly, if you want to transfer to Army or Navy, you have to start out as a plebe. None of your credits transfer over, okay? So they're not transferring, they're not getting NIL, and honestly, almost none of them are going to the NFL either, right? Like, they're not, right after this game, hopping on a plane to Florida to start training. And I'm sure you guys as well, I have a really healthy appreciation for the purity of what tomorrow is, right? I mean, tomorrow is these guys, a lot of the seniors playing football for the last time in their lives. They know that. They're not playing for anything else other than to beat their biggest rival, to try to not have a losing season, and to be able to have those bragging rights for the rest of their life, especially when for at least 5 years, they're going to be working arm in arm with these other guys on the other branch of the service.
Yeah, it is. You know, Ross, Mike and I playing at Notre Dame, we play Army, Navy, Air Force all the time, and the talk after the game is always, you know, the normal football talk, and then it's, I always gotten the most chills talking to those players after and just, you know, getting in front of it and thanking them for what they're about to do for all of us. It's just different. So I've tried to explain to people, when I was in Philadelphia, our walkthroughs a lot of times on Saturdays were on an Army-Navy game, and then we would stay sometimes and watch the game. And just, Ross, to see that in person, it's one thing on TV, but I try and tell people, if you get a chance, see it, and just through your eyes and your words, explain just the meaning of that game, especially in person.
Yeah, you know, Mike, it's funny because it's hard to describe unless you've been there, and I'm glad that you have. That's awesome that you had that right after your walkthrough. But it's one of the reasons why I say it's my favorite day of the year. You know, I know people have different feelings about our country, and we know how politics is and all that stuff, right? It feels like it's divisive a lot. If you ever want to feel like an overwhelming sense of pride, patriotism, and really feel like we are still unified and united despite what goes on outside, it's that day. It's that day. I mean, every midshipman's there, every cadet's there, their parents are there, you know, the flyovers, the march-ons. It's just like I feel like the whole day, guys, I'm like this. Like I'm just, my chest is filled with pride, and I'm so proud to be an American, and I'm so proud of these young guys. I mean, these guys all have scholarship offers. Now, might be FCS or Group of 5, but they have scholarship offers, most of them. And they said, you know what? No, like, I'm going to do something from age 18 to age 27 that none of my other buddies are doing. Nobody else is doing. For 9 years, I'm not going to just be able to go to college and party and do this, and then after college, like, I'm in awe of the decision that these guys make when they're 18, and then for them to go out there and lay it all on the line just for each other, just to win a game, not for the NFL or any of that other crap. It's beautiful.
It really is such a unique set of circumstances. It's a unique spectacle. Like you mentioned, you've got heads of state, military leaders out there for the coin toss. I saw Maria Taylor do a hit for College Game Day on top of a tank one year when it was in Philadelphia. So you get some unique opportunities, but like Dad said, we played these schools a lot, and I always remember for Notre Dame games after that, we always go over and sing the alma mater, and when you play one of the service academies, they come over and sing the alma mater with us. We go over and sing theirs. The version of that happens after Army-Navy is the closest to a religious experience on a football field that I've ever seen. It's eerily quiet. Nobody goes anywhere. There is a real sense of, in that moment after all of this, because make no mistake, these teams want to beat the hell out of each other. And I want to talk about the football portion of this with you, Ross, because I got friends that were on both sides of this rivalry as players who it is the Iron Bowl, it is the game, it is all those things, and even more wrapped up into how they feel football-wise. But after, in that moment, there is that brotherhood of people that know we're all going to be serving towards the same cause. It's the moment that still gives me chills now. So you're absolutely right about the overall feel around this game. But Ross, let's get a look at the football portion of this. Obviously 5-6, not the season that either team expected. Brian Newberry takes over after the long tenured Ken Niumatalolo there at Navy. So what do you expect to see on the field from these teams?
Well, Newberry's defense has been unbelievable. Really, the whole time he's been the coordinator there, and now that he's the head coach this year, I mean, Army's only averaging 10 points a game against Navy since Newberry's been there, and they have 4 games this year where they didn't allow a touchdown. I mean, Navy has 3 shutouts. The only other FBS team that has 3 shutouts is Penn State. Meanwhile, Army, you guys are going to love this, okay? Army the whole year went to a new offense, a shotgun offense. Now, it was kind of like a Coastal Carolina offense. They call it gun option. The last game against Coastal Carolina, they came out in the old school triple, and Coastal Carolina wasn't ready for it. Can you imagine that, Golic Sr., being a D lineman and you're not ready for the triple option? Army came out and rushed for almost 500 yards. We had that first quarter interview with the Coastal Carolina head coach, and he was like, we didn't know they were going to switch back to the option this week. It was a massacre. It was unbelievable. So one of the things I'm curious about, to be honest with you, is what Army comes out and does. I don't think they'll go back to the triple, even though they had success against Coastal, because Navy's so good against it. I mean, look, you know, this is a game where you bet the under. I know last year was the first time in 17 years that the under didn't hit. You know why? It was double overtime. I mean, even if the game just ended after the first overtime, the under still would have hit. So listen, I had the honor to call Nebraska, Iowa. I am kind of the undertaker, the under expert at this point. So I'm telling you, take the under again. There's not going to be very many points.
There we go, and it's, I think, like 27.5 points. It's beautiful. It's the way it's supposed to be. It is a game that we are all very much looking forward to this weekend. One of the best all year, one of the best traditions that college football has, and you guys get to hear Ross shepherding you through that call on the way to likely another under. Ross, I know you're in the gift-giving mood right now, coming on here, giving us some time this morning. I also know you want to help out some guys like my father, who in the past may have given things like a massage chair to my mom on Mother's Day and might not feel so good about that. What can you tell me about myfrontpagestory.com quick? We got about a minute.
Listen, your dad probably every year just gets your mom like gift cards. I'm just telling everybody listening or watching, whatever, go to myfrontpagestory.com. You literally talk to one of their writers for 10 minutes, like while you're driving to work or driving to get a burger or something. Tell them how great your wife is. They write the most, or anybody, right? Your mom, your dad, whoever you want to get it for. They write this unbelievable story, guys. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper. It's framed. It's beautiful. I've seen so many guys give these to their wives now. It's amazing because they're opening it up and they don't know what it is. And the guy's like, I just want to do something special for you, babe. So I had a story written about you. Like, tell me that doesn't sound amazing. I had a story. It sounds like you commissioned an author. And then when they read the quotes like, I never thank her enough for all the little things she does for me. Like, they cry every time. Myfrontpagestory.com. Golic Sr., you can get her gift cards the next 5 years if you just get her a story from myfrontpagestory.com this year, so you did something thoughtful and unique.
It's all about looking good in front of the wife, so I'm certainly looking forward to trying that. I appreciate that.
There you go, myfrontpagestory.com, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Check him out on Army-Navy this weekend. Ross, have a great call, brother.
Absolutely. You guys as well. Love talking with you.
GoJo and Golic. The Giants are riding a 2-game win streak, and the fellas had a chance to catch up with wide receiver Isaiah Hodgins the other day. So the 2026 round draft pick had career highs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns with New York last season. He had a chance to chat with the guys, break it all down, talk about the season that is going on right now. Let's have a listen.
All right, Giants wideout Isaiah Hodgins kind enough to join us today. And Isaiah, first and foremost, man, how are you feeling? The calendar has finally turned to December here. We're getting towards the late stages of the NFL season, and we know this time of year can be a huge grind, both physically and mentally. So how are you holding up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm holding up well. You know, we just had that bye week, so that helped a lot, being able to go home, spend some time with family. And, we're feeling good coming off 2 wins and trying to make it 3 on Monday night.
How is the team? Where is this team mentally when you come into work every day?
Yeah, I mean, we got a team full of competitors. So, I mean, I think it's just good to see like everyone's still coming in, like grinding every day, competing. There's still good energy in the building. And, we're just trying to stack wins because at the end of the day, like, you never know what could happen. And you're trying to put good film out there on tape. So, you never want to go out there and just get dominated, just go out there and just kind of like lay down and give up. So, we got the same mindset around the locker room for everybody.
Your team this year has dealt with a bunch of injury at the quarterback position. Obviously, we'll talk about Tommy DeVito and kind of where you guys are at currently. As you see that change happen in that spot on offense, you were a guy that came on and had such a strong 2022 season for you guys and was such an important part by the end of this season for this offense. So how did you approach that situation? What did you try and do as different quarterbacks were coming in there to kind of help this team?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to get on the same page with them. It's big just for communication, just getting those reps and like them understanding your body language, you understanding. I mean, little stuff, just like their throwing motion. Like obviously, like Daniel and Tyrod are a little bit like taller quarterbacks, and they have a different throwing motion. And like Tommy, like we always say, like he's real snappy with his throwing motion. Like that ball gets on you quick, and like out of nowhere, it's just like boom, like ball's on you. Like you just have to get those reps in practice, after practice, just kind of before the game, just knowing like how he throws it, what he's seeing, like just all the different stuff that goes into it before a game.
So 3 different quarterbacks, playing on this offense already. Talk about from your position how different that is.
Yeah, it's tough, like I said. So you have to like do a great job of like taking it into your own hands and like communicating with them and getting that off the field, off the practice stuff. Because there's sometimes that Tommy might sit here and go like, oh, I like this route ran like this, or I want you guys to convert this, versus coverage. And like Daniel and Tyrod might be like, nah, like I don't like it like that. I like it like this. And they just see the field different ways and whatever. So you just have to like communicate with them so you're on the same page come game time.
So what's it been like with Tommy now? We've seen the last couple of weeks. Everybody has been having a really good time with this incredibly Italian quarterback in New York. We've seen all the stuff about chicken parm and him living on. So what is Tommy DeVito? We've seen the character here. What's he like in the locker room while all of this fame has now been thrust upon him?
Yeah, I mean, he's really the same guy. He's like a humble dude. He's chill. He loves talking about all the Italian stuff and him growing up here. But he still owes me a chicken parm, man. I told him he's getting all these free sandwiches and stuff. I told him I need a couple. So he told me he'd hook me up this week. So I'm waiting on that. But man, he's a good dude. He's a hard worker, and we've been excited to play with him.
So has he not had talked about a team party at his parents' house yet where he's living?
That would be definitely a one for the books. That'd be
it'd be incredible there. I'm surprised. Have you seen the images of his family at the game and stuff? Have you guys seen them all rolling up there?
I want to meet his family. It's like a huge mob of them just out there tailgating and stuff, smoking cigars. I'm like, I saw it when I was watching the TV copy of the game. I was like, oh, this looks like a good time. I want to go hang out with them.
Yeah, they're pretty good at tailgating. There's no doubt about it. But from the standpoint of, listen, he's not a household name. He's not a guy people expected to be a quarterback. Like, did you individually talk to him? Did players talk to him about kind of, I don't know, staying calm, whatever advice you wanted to give him, because this was a situation he wasn't used to?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely people who talk to him and instill that confidence in him. But Tommy already had a lot of that, especially in camp. You would see it in camp. People just don't look at it as highly because maybe he's getting reps with the 2s or the 3s and stuff. But like he was slinging it around and slinging it like he was confident. And we were saying that like, you know, when he first came in for OTAs, like I remember Slayton coming to me being like, you know, he got a rep with him and he was like, yo, Tommy like throws it like hard. Like I didn't know that and I wasn't expecting that. Like, and that's just kind of like, that's why you have to get those reps with him. But like he's a confident dude, man. Like the team's rallied behind him and, you know, encouraged him throughout practice, you know, so, you know, it's been positive for him.
Positive for him, and working with Brian Daboll, a guy who certainly is renowned for the job that he's done with quarterbacks. You were with Brian in Buffalo there, and obviously a big part of how you ended up over here with the Giants. What's his demeanor been like through the ups and downs of this season?
Yeah, he's just been nonstop trying to just encourage us to, you know, keep competing and keep fighting, and just like he's just gone over just all his coaching seasons so many times of like, hey, like I've had this many losing seasons, I've had this many winning seasons. This is what we're not going to do. Like these losing seasons that I have, we're going to handle it like this and professionals, and, you know, just giving us that motivation of like, hey, taking it one game at a time. Like, don't look at the record. Like, and at the end of the season, we'll be able to look back and like know that you gave it your all. And just like those like nonstop messages throughout team meetings and stuff and practice and bringing energy and effort. So, you know, I think it's been helping us the last couple of weeks.
How has his approach, if at all, changed through this season to try and extra motivate or whatever to try and turn this team around? Is the way he's going about his business change at all?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily changed. Like I think even in the games that I know it sounds crazy that we haven't won or like got blown out, like we were preparing well and we were sitting there like, you know, going through practice, and like our practice weeks were amazing and we were competing and doing all that. It's just like the execution on game day isn't there, like, which, you know, is the biggest factor, obviously. So that's been, you know, a thing that we've been harping on the past couple of weeks. It's like, all right, like we got to compete in practice, we got to do good in practice, and then ultimately on game day, like we got to put it all together. Like we can't just not show up on game day. So, you know, the last 2 weeks obviously it's helped us. So, you know, we got to go out here and do it again on Monday night.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys are part of the Monday night doubleheader there. Big matchup against a surging Green Bay Packers team. What do you look at when you see this Green Bay Packers defense right now that's especially been playing better as of late?
Yeah, I mean, just as you said, they've been playing great as of lately. So, you know, they're going to have that energy. They're probably getting a couple guys back. So, you know, just kind of like preparing for just like, you know, the overall defense, how they fly around, the different coverages that they run and try to throw at you. So, you know, we've been preparing for that throughout the week.
Off of the NFL, I have to ask you, you and your brother both play Oregon State. What are your thoughts as you see the Pac-12 now basically done, and to boot your team, Oregon State and Washington State, not really with a home anymore?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, to be honest. Like, I mean, just seeing the Pac-12 like not be a thing anymore is a little you know, just like insane to me. Oregon State beat a lot of the teams that are sitting here going to other conferences. So I'm like, shoot, put Oregon State in there, man. We've been ranked in the top 25 for the past 2 years. So, you know, that's just my thing. But I mean, we got a bowl game versus Notre Dame, so hopefully they go out and, you know, handle it there.
Yeah, exactly. That is both of our alma maters in there too. So yeah. We'll look forward to that. Maybe get some of Tommy DeVito's chicken parm as a wager on the side for that. But in the meantime, with the stage that you've got now, Isaiah, we know the NFL's got the My Cause, My Cleats initiative going on. You guys have a big platform coming up on Monday night. And for your cleats, I know you're representing Comfort Cases. What can you tell us about that group and why they were important to you?
Yeah, they just do a lot for the foster community and just different places around the nation. And, you know, they a lot of times in these foster homes and places, they have like kids are just given like trash bags, you know, like they don't really have anywhere to like, keep their belongings and stuff. So they try to sit there and provide backpacks with them with supplies in there for them for different things that they might need from school, for the house, or for wherever they're at. And I have a little experience just like with that, because my little sister, we adopted her, and then I had a foster little brother as well, who we got at 16. So he was able to sit there and kind of just explain like just the ins and outs of foster homes and getting moved from home to home. So, you know, that's been something that's just like close to my heart. So, you know, it's just trying to do that and get back to them and, you know, trying to kind of put that on the map a little bit.
Incredibly important, and like we said, a big platform coming up this week with the primetime game to show just that. Isaiah, can't thank you enough for giving us some time, man. Best of luck this week with Monday Night Football, and we are going to make sure we're using all of our power to make sure Tommy DeVito gets you some of that chicken parm sooner than later.
Please, I need to try it, man.
There we go. Thanks, Isaiah. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Isaiah.
Appreciate you guys.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It's Friday, so that means we must bring you the NFL Acrostic for Week 14, the Golic NFL Acrostic, which we have created here. And of course, that also means that we have a beautiful poem for you, which is why I'm wearing this stupid hat. So G is for an ankle that we hope can heal up fast. O is for the Bills trying to make their playoff chances last. L is for the division that seems to be the worst. I is for a favorite that should be on upset alert. C is for Dak trying to knock off a division rival. Now let's see what the Golics think about Week 14's arrival. Woohoo!
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Every
okay.
week, Slates finds a way to land the plane.
Every week he does it. So let's start with G. Let's start with gimpy ankle, guys. So will Trevor Lawrence play or won't he? What was with not using a cart after that injury? I don't know. Here's Trevor on how he's feeling.
Maybe.
No, it seems that
It
that
sounds
didn't
like that's
work.
going to happen, but take our word for it. Trevor, thanking the medical staff and Dad revealing, I think very importantly so, because the number one thing we were all thinking about first and foremost was Trevor's health and safety. Coming off what was a very nasty-looking ankle injury. But then number two was why, in a state full of golf carts, they couldn't get something out there to carry Trevor to the locker room. And Dad, you were actually the one that told me this yesterday. He was offered the golf cart. He turned the golf cart down, and then about halfway to the locker room realized it was a lot farther than he expected and regretted not taking the golf cart.
Yeah, listen, I did that one time. The only time I went on IR during my career, I got bent over on a play in a game, back in my kind of back on my own knee, and I was laying there. The docs came out and they're like, "We're going to get like a cart." Back then, it wasn't a golf cart; it was like this cart they wheeled you off on. It was so 80-ish. And I'm like, no. I don't want to go. I want to walk off. So they started to stand me up and my knee shifted. And I'm like, okay, sit me down on the cart. Let's sit me down on this thing and get me off
I'm
the
sorry.
field.
I've made a mistake here. Please don't make me do this.
I guarantee you there's more people than not that will say, I don't want to go down a cart. I want to walk off the field. And he was one of them. That's what he did. And then realized what a mistake it was. They play the Browns, Mike, and it's a good defensive team, obviously, in Cleveland. But you got to think of the long term, and I mean of this season, and say, if this guy needs to sit this game for an extra week, you got to sit him so he's right, because you don't need this thing lingering.
This is a lot like the images we've seen, though, of Aaron Rodgers being out on the field and moving around at all, this close to an Achilles injury that he suffered. With Trevor Lawrence, Dad, what we saw in that game, like your point about the cart, you had a choice. Most guys that get the cart are getting the cart because there is no way on God's green earth that they can put weight on whatever limb they just injured. And with Trevor Lawrence, it looked like that. We had the moment where he gets rolled up on. It's his own guy that gets pushed back into him in the left tackle, and then he tries to get up and walk off and immediately goes to the ground in the heap. And that's where we're all like, oh my God. And so for him to then turn down work and be out, we saw limited window into practice, and he didn't do everything. But the fact that he was out there moving around, pushing off that thing, already felt like more than we could have possibly expected with this. I'm with you. You got to keep the long-term viewpoint in there, Dad. And with Trevor Lawrence, this isn't just, he's got to be healthy enough to go out there and stand in the pocket. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, so much of their game is boot action, getting him on the move, letting him use that exemplary athletic ability that if it's hampered at all by this, completely changes the dynamic of the offense. Maybe not as much as having C.J. Beathard out there, which is still the other option, but it definitely alters what Trevor Lawrence and what we're used to seeing.
And Lawrence is listed as questionable. I mean, not even doubtful. And usually if it's doubtful, it means you're not playing. But he's questionable. C.J. Beathard, by the way, is nicked up a little bit. He's questionable as well. Now, the injury lists get pretty long by the end of the season because you have to disclose everything. But that will be interesting if he makes it back in a week from what that looked like. But I would lean toward not and having Beathard in this game.
Yeah, Browns are 3-point favorites right now. I think that's the right line. I think the under 32.5 is fascinating in this one for a Browns team that's got Joe Flacco playing quarterback right now, for a Browns team that's got a chance to have an easier time getting to the quarterback this week against this Jags offensive line, whether you've got an injured quarterback or a backup quarterback in that game. Most surprising thing to me was last week, though, Dad, how the Jags got run on there, and that's certainly not the taste you want in your mouth, getting ready to face a Cleveland team that's going to try and make their living there, especially up the middle.
Yeah, that's what. And again, they're on their fourth quarterback, so they certainly don't want to rely on the arm of said insert quarterback here. In this case, Joe Flacco. So yeah, they live on the run. This is going to be a lot tougher than I think we think for Jacksonville.
I would agree. So very interesting juncture of their season, too, as a team we've talked about kind of in that Detroit Lions range of we're not sure what their floor or ceiling are. All that goes out the window if Trevor Lawrence all of a sudden has to miss any game down the stretch of this season with how tight their race is. Let's get to the second portion of this. Jesse, the weirdest story to come from yesterday, bar none. When I look on ESPN.com and on the front page, I see Bills coach apologized for 9/11 remarks made in 2019. You're not having a great time.
Yeah, so Sean McDermott was on the defensive on Thursday after it emerged that he used the September 11th terrorist attacks as an example of good teamwork in a speech to his players. That is correct. You are hearing me correctly. Here he is addressing the incident.
I want to reference the team meeting that has been brought up. My intent in the meeting that day was to discuss the importance of communication and being on the same page with the team. I regretted mentioning 9/11 in my message that day, and I immediately apologized to the team. Not only was 9/11 a horrific event in our country's history, but a day that I lost a good family friend. To be honest with you, I'm not here to discuss the article that's out there and the things that are mentioned other than this right here, because this right here is very, very important to me. And something I take very seriously.
It's a big yikes. Big yikes, guys. What is going on in Buffalo? I mean, good Lord.
Dad, I was surprised he addressed this. Now, Tyler Dunn, and it's on the publication Go Long, wrote a 3-part, very long, incredibly well-sourced. They referenced multiple players, both on and off the record. I think about 25 different players, former assistants, who were a mix of on and off the record, just talking about Sean McDermott's tenure in Buffalo to begin with. But this story was certainly the juiciest nugget coming out of this idea, as it's reported in the story, that Sean McDermott tried to drive home this idea of teamwork by referencing how the Al-Qaeda terrorists worked together on the day of 9/11 to orchestrate one of the most gruesome terror attacks in our country's history. I can't believe he addressed it and actually crystallized. This was, basically a he said potentially between him and former players, none of whom I believe for this story were on the record talking about this particular incident. And he came out and said, yes, it's true, and I'm sorry for it, in a way that stunned me.
Yeah, I mean, giving that speech in the first place back in 19, again, from the hijacker side of it was just unbelievable. But I think, Mike, in this case, as that article came out now and people were going to see that, people look at articles and take the most hot topic thing, and that was going to be it. That was going to be asked of him. So I do think it was going to end up in front of him. So I think he was just getting in front of it, before any more was made out of it, of what a mistake it was for him to do that and how it was going to come back now because this article just came out.
Do you think that, so the whole tenor, I mean, again, like you said, the most bizarre case of football brain ever, where you're and we got a good insight of this actually this year about how coaches plan this out, because everyone involved said Sean is too meticulous in the way that he approaches these things for this to have been some off-the-cuff thing. He had to have planned it. And we've seen this year for Dan Lanning in Oregon, as they've planned all these elaborate videos associated with their wins. Dan Lanning has a plan for the message he's going to deliver every week to the team and how he puts together the speech for that.
Right.
But this is clearly someone way too deep down the rabbit hole in football brain trying to make this happen. It's a good reminder of everything we've been through this year. Good chance to re-up after the video board incident at Michigan State, and now this. Certain list of things you just never mention. 9/11 and Hitler. Don't do it. If you're thinking, I'm going to make a compelling point using some of the more nuanced notes of either of these people or events, places in history, don't do it. Never a good idea. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not mention 9/11 and Hitler. We'll add to the list as we see fit.
Especially mentioning them in a positive light or in a positive way of how the hijackers work together, or Adolf Hitler was actually a really good leader. I mean, to even utter those things, my God. I mean, blows my mind that you could think of it and say, hey, would this be a good speech? Not only do you need the common person sense in the room, you need it in your head to say, what the hell are you thinking? Why would you even bring that up? And put in the positive light that the scum that are involved in this. I mean, it blows my mind. But you're right. It's about a coach going so deep into a rabbit hole of being a coach and trying to find a motivational factor.
So with that in mind, Dad, the overall tenor of the article was Buffalo has a Sean McDermott problem, that in big games he's been too controlling, he's micromanaged too much. It's why you've seen such a mass exodus of assistant coaches over the years, jockeying for power, taking over play calling in critical moments there. As it pertains to this weekend, Dad, do you look at this Kansas City Chiefs matchup and think the Buffalo Bills can right their season, coming off a great Josh Allen performance, but going up against a Kansas City team that this article points to, that playoff loss, really the breaking point for this coach and his grasp on the wheel here?
Do they have the talent to do it? Yes. And also, let's throw in that KC isn't looking its best right now either. And I mean, you look at the last time they didn't win the division was 2019, and they still went to the playoffs as a wild card, lost to Houston. Then they won the division all the next years. 13-3, lost the conference title to Kansas City. 11-6, lost the division to KC. And then last year, 13-3, and they lost in the division series to Cincinnati. So it kind of reminds me of Marty Schottenheimer, the late great Marty Schottenheimer, coaching in Cleveland, getting his team to the AFC Championship, but then not being able to get it past, whether it's the drive or the fumble or whatever, and then losing his job by going that far but not getting over the hump. And I mean, yeah, Sean McDermott's got a hell of a record, and they keep winning the division now. As we mentioned, 3 years could be, won't be this year, but 3 years in a row, and playoffs last 4 years. So how far do you let it go of success, but not success to the level that you want?
Yeah, it certainly becomes difficult, especially when you're judged on what goes on with those other great teams in your division, in your conference, I should say, especially. So I think the Chiefs, who are right now 1.5-point home favorite, I think they find a way to win. I do think there is something to Andy Reid against one of his former assistants and a guy who does sometimes white knuckle in critical moments, running into this again. Both defenses far lesser. The Chiefs defense has fallen off from their early season standard, but I think they're going to find enough in the Chiefs offense against a Buffalo Bills defense that was damaged due to injury and has just not played nearly as well quietly throughout this process. I think Kansas City gets the dub. Dad, let's get to L. We can go quickly through this one because it's the NFC South. The loser's out. Will the loser of Tampa Bay and Atlanta be out of the NFC South division race that it seems like no one's ever out of because none of these teams are actually that good? I think Atlanta's going to win the division. I think they're going to win this game. I think Tampa Bay on defense is just not built to party at this point.
I agree. I think Atlanta's a better team. I think they do win the division. Either way, whoever wins the division, there's only going to be one representative in the playoffs, I think, from this division, because you guess Atlanta has 6 losses, Tampa Bay has 7, but there's 6 other 6-loss teams who are vying for that shot right outside the wild card as well. So I do think it's only one team, and I do think it's Atlanta.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's go on to the I, Dad. In danger of an upset, Week 9, team that is in most danger of getting knocked off this week. We talked about the Buffalo Bills potentially. Now, it's basically a coin flip on the road for them, it seems, so that one hardly seems like too big of a potential upset here. Any other games sticking out to you, Dad, as we look at the weekend slate here? We've got the Seahawks as massive underdogs to the 49ers. Jacksonville is 3-point dogs to the Cleveland Browns. The Carolina Panthers, 5-point dogs on the road against the Saints. Anything catching your eye?
Well, what's the spread in the Baltimore Rams game? That one might
7.5.
That one might be an interesting one. Now, they have been nicked up at the receiver position. Cooper Kupp's been getting nicked up. Puka Nacua obviously hurt his shoulder as well. But Kyron Williams, if he's on the field, he's going to end up in the end zone. That's just what he does. So that may be one, if Stafford playing well in that defense, when you always have Aaron Donald out there, what it can possibly do. So I might look at that one possibly. I don't think Chicago is gonna knock off Detroit. Detroit finds a way. So I might look at that one. Remember, Philly in this game going to Dallas is the underdog. So they have the better record, but they're the underdog in this one. They certainly could win in Dallas, so Dallas is playing really well. I might look at Baltimore and the Rams as a good possibility.
I would agree. I think that's the one that you've got circled. At the very least, I think the Rams cover in this game, right? 7 in the hook there.
Yeah.
I think they're in good shape for that. For the Baltimore Ravens side of things, you're getting Justin Madubuike back, your great defensive lineman. You're hopefully getting Marlon Humphrey back too. Marcus Williams, a couple pieces in that secondary, so your defense is going to be at full strength. Going up against a Rams offense that, Dad, has run the ball better this year, especially up the middle when Kyron Williams has been healthy. They're versatile there. Matthew Stafford, when healthy, operates a pretty fast offense, and the defense still has enough Aaron Donald to maybe give you some issues with the young guys as the Ravens try and figure out life post Mark Andrews on offense. Still an incredible rushing attack, still obviously with Lamar Jackson, more Keaton Mitchell carries coming up as well there, but I think the Rams do have the parts necessary to make this a close and interesting game if they go out there and, like you said, are healthy at a lot of those skill spots.
Yeah, I agree. I think for sure they covered. You mentioned 7.5. For sure they cover on Baltimore, but it would not stun me if Monday we're talking about the Rams getting that win.
All right, well, let's get to the final portion of this. Changing the narrative. Can the Dallas Cowboys take out the Philadelphia Eagles? This was Micah Parsons talking about the rivalry on his podcast.
It's always one of the biggest games in football, if not the biggest. The intensity is always high, the emotion's high, everyone wants to win. It's a brawl. It's always one where you got to get the ice bags ready.
JK, that was at a press conference. But either way, Dad, you're calling this game on Sunday night. What are you expecting from this? As you mentioned, Philly, the underdog here, despite the better record.
So he's so right about this game. You know, when I was in Philadelphia, it was just a different practice week. Kind of in college, if it's, you know, for me, it was Notre Dame when we played SC. You guys maybe when it was Michigan, right? It was a different week. And it was always Cowboy week. It always got, now we hit during practice anyway, but it was always a little more, you know, a little more hitting, maybe even a little more fighting amongst ourselves, but then always coming together for the game. But it's a different week. And you throw in the fact that Buddy Ryan and Jimmy Johnson hated one another, that just added to it. The fights, the pushing, the shoving, I mean, that go on in that game. And, oh, by the way, the great play that would go on in that game. So that's where we are now. Mike, we get such, you know this as an analyst, when you're calling games, you get great information sent to you. And each week I get great research packets and on each individual game. And normally they're like 4 pages. What I have, and breaking down for the Cowboys, Eagles, it's 17 pages. 17 pages of research notes on this game alone. And that's coming from the league, not even from the teams. So there's so many things here that's going on that I'll talk about in the game, for man coverage, single high, you know, not to get crazy on it, but both O-lines, especially the Dallas O-line. That to me is one of the biggest things. The Dallas offensive line is healthy and playing incredibly well. Deron Bland is doing obviously a great job, but it's almost like Diggs, who is hurt. You could get that interception, or you get thrown on. Bland is getting thrown on a lot as well, but he's also getting interceptions. So it's kind of a hit or miss thing there as well. So I'm looking so forward to the matchups. So the linebacker issues for the Eagles. Can Philly offense get back to looking like it was a little bit? I mean, a classic matchup of these two teams. Hard hitting, I think going to be close. I can't pick a winner in this one, but man, I'm going to be real happy to be calling it.
I think the Cowboys win this game. The biggest questions I have are, how does Jalen Hurts respond after a week full of criticism to him, knowing full well he's not 100%? Does the Eagles offense adjust with that in mind? They don't have multiple tight ends available, but can they get the run game going against this Dallas front? Or because of the way Dallas plays, is this more of a receiver-led game for them, given the opportunities there? And on the other side, is there anything they can do to stop the middle of the field, where Dallas exploited them early and often in the last matchup there? CeeDee Lamb had the game of his season with over 191 yards, working a lot of that out of the slot against the nickel and linebacker rooms for the Eagles that have been decimated by injury. I think we saw Philly fall from grace last week against the 49ers, and I think unfortunately for them, this becomes a 2-game skid against the other 2 premier teams in the NFC.
back to GoJo and Golic. It is time to turn our attention to the college game with our Modelo College Football Preview, brought to you by Modelo, the mark of a fighter. So Marvin Harrison Jr. gave us a preview of his future, a.k.a. whether or not he's going to declare for the draft.
Yeah, I'm still undecided. You guys know, coming into this year, I wanted to beat the TN North and win a Big Ten championship, and obviously I did not do that this year. So I think it's a great motive to come back if that's what I decide to do, because that's something I definitely wanted to do in my Ohio State career, and not being done that yet definitely opens the door. I'm definitely blessed to be getting all the recognition that I am for these different awards and things like that. But I think I would trade it all for a win against the TN North.
So guys, what do we think? Is he really not going to declare?
No.
Okay.
No.
We did, Dad, it's worth noting, we did see this last year, remember, with C.J. Stroud, where for a while there was this will he, won't he, and a lot of people thought in the NIL era, were they trying to put together a package enticing enough to bring him back to college? We've heard so much of it the other way through the lens of Caleb Williams this year, whose father's been public about this idea that if they don't like the teams at the top of the draft that might be picking, maybe he would come back. Last year it was more Ohio State trying to coax C.J. Stroud back, which, hubba, we see why, because if you put C.J. Stroud on this year's Ohio State team, we might be having some very different conversations about Marvin Harrison and some of his goals with that team up north.
Yeah, and listen, I get it. Lost 3 in a row to Michigan. You'd like to win a Big Ten title. You'd like to win a national title. Remember, Peyton Manning went back for another year to try and get a national title, and it was actually T. Martin after that who got it. So I understand the thought process at times, but when cooler heads prevail, he also has to realize he had a new quarterback this year in Kyle McCord who is now leaving. So instead of having that guy next year with a little bit of continuity, you're going to have another brand new starting quarterback at Ohio State. I don't know why he'd want to put himself in that position, put him in position for injury as well. Now, if he wants to go back because he thinks that team, and they're always a talented team, can win the Big Ten, and now it's a 12-team playoff. So just like this year, if it were next year, they would be in and have a chance for a title. Listen, no problem. Tip of the cap if he wants to go back and do it, because you can only go through college one time, and it's a lot of fun, as we both know. It is a ball. But I do think at the end of the day, he's going to end up declaring.
I agree. He's expected by most people's estimations to be the third pick in the draft, at the very least the third overall prospect in the draft, the best non-quarterback in the draft, and after being a Biletnikoff finalist, doing all the things that he has done here, I understand, and great by him, by the way, to reference the game. You want to talk about something that'll endear you to Ohio State fans who are going to understand if Marvin Harrison Jr. decides to forego his eligibility and go to the NFL. At the very least, you drive home the fact that, oh, by the way, I'm really about this life over here in the shoe. I want to beat that team real bad for you guys, but unfortunately, money, the opportunity, all the things that we expect there. So I'd imagine this is the thing you say when you're still deliberating right now. You're going to talk with Ryan Day and company, and certainly his father, who knows all about this, whoever's going to help him make this decision. And we wish him well on that one. He was the only reason that Ohio State team was competitive in their biggest games of the season, was because they had 18 on the field for them and nobody else did. He's been one of the best college football players to watch. Pumped to watch him at the next level. Big, physical, really smart receiver. All the things that you want there. Jesse, college football was incredibly giving of headlines overall in recent days, and I don't think many things turned heads quite like the statement from Deion Sanders involving the P word, privacy.
Yeah, I actually had to read the headline a few times, which is that apparently Deion Sanders wants more privacy. So he had this to say in an exclusive interview with People. He said, "You always wish that you had a little more privacy, but the same thing that makes you shine will show your blemishes. So you've got to take the good with the bad. You can't just want everyone there when the hype machine is rolling. You have to understand there's another side to this." So guys, if there's one person that I had to guess would live by the motto, there's no such thing as bad publicity, all publicity is good publicity, is Deion, because he's the one who's inviting all these cameras in. So it's kind of wild to me that he could be saying, you always wish you had more privacy.
This has big, I think you should leave, we're all trying to find the guy who did this hot dog suit energy to it, where, Dad, we look at this after a year where Colorado was one of the premier stories in sports, not college football, in sports, because of Deion Sanders, because of the unparalleled access from the moment he walked into the door to everything we saw through the first quarter of the season. Now this. So a little bit hilarious to hear in retrospect. Deion's sometimes a guy that speaks off the cup, and maybe he truly believes that coming out of both sides of his mouth right now, but the rest of us do not.
No, don't believe it one bit. And quite honestly, I know I don't have a problem with what he did, because the whole idea of college is you want to attract big-time athletes, whether it's 18-year-olds or whether it's portal guys. And when they were winning in the beginning and he was out there all the time, and all the stars outside the world of football or even inside, but all former players were hanging out on the sidelines, that was showing everybody. That was a clear, as we've talked about, coaches sending messages. That was a message to recruits and to portal guys. Hey, look what we got going on here. We're winning. Stars hang out here. You know, we're the LA of Colorado. You know, stars are coming to our games. You know, we're it right now. So this is where you want to go. And unfortunately, the season didn't end that way, but I certainly don't blame him one bit for what he did. But then, you know, with season 2 of Coach Prime coming out, you know,
every time I walked into LAX, the first thing when I got through security in the Delta terminal was a billboard for the Prime documentary show on Amazon Prime. It was so perfect.
Yeah, so I guess you got to kind of miss me with that one. You know, they say all of a sudden you want to, you know, you can control that. You know, you signed the deal that talked about, you know, season 2 of Coach Prime. Maybe you signed a 2-year deal. I don't know. You did that. So it's going to be out there. Your team's going to be out there. And I don't think it's all bad. As I said, I don't think it's all bad at all. I really don't. But now him saying we want more privacy does make you chuckle a bit.
I mean, he went on Le Batard's show Monday and said, we're in the portal and we're going after O-linemen. He being very public about this. If you want to not necessarily say this is cause and effect, but yesterday they got a commitment from a 5-star offensive tackle in Jordan Seaton coming to Colorado, chose them over a bunch of big-time schools. And so it is going to be his best pitch. Like he said, the things that allow you to shine are also going to expose the warts, but it has made it very clear, hey, if you're a kid that wants to come to Colorado, and I said this covering a couple of their games during the season, he's got the easiest recruiting pitch in the country. Look at how high this thing can climb when we're really good. We've got a defined need right now. You know, Dad, coaches love this. We're one blank away from being great. You can be that difference for us as a player. And for young guys who are looking to get on the field early, maximize their exposure, Colorado can certainly afford you that when things go well. We'll see if they're able to pull that off, Dad. Meanwhile, speaking of exposure, Notre Dame getting back into the game right now. Notre Dame doing a Hard Knock style in-season series with Peacock. Now, we've seen this in the past. They did the Showtime series a few years ago. They did one series, I remember back in like the Julius Jones era when I was a kid that I watched. So not new for Notre Dame, but certainly in year 3 for Marcus Freeman, an added bit of the microscope on his team in the form of all these cameras.
Well, Mike, I would have no thought, or I would have got to believe this was part of the deal, right? I mean, they just signed a new deal with NBC and Peacock that's paying them a hell of a lot more than what they were paying them. So I'm sure NBC was like, okay, we're going to need a little more. You know, we already have you guys exclusively, but let's give a little, we want more content for our money, right? More bang for our buck. So I don't know this. I wasn't there in the meetings. I'm not sure, but I got to believe that this was part of the negotiation. Okay, if we're say doubling what we were paying you, we're going to need more content to put out there on our channels.
I will say this for people that might be worried, hey, is this too much for year 3 of a coach that's trying to get things back and get over these humps and all that stuff? In this day and age in college sports where you have so much content being made in-house already and so much focus on how you publicly present, Marcus has done a good job of handling that as anybody in the country right now. This hardly feels as invasive as it used to in a time before we had all this access.
Players are so used to having cameras around them, like you said, even their own, from your own, you know, inside there, you know, that cameras are going to be around them. So what's the difference if you don't know the person behind the camera just you know, filming? It doesn't matter. They're used to it, so no big deal. But I got to believe it was part of the whole big package.
Absolutely. So Lord knows I'll be lined up and watching that like I was watching the in-season tournament. Come up next, let's take a look at the final now set in the NBA's wildly successful new venture.
Back to GoJo and Golic. Fellas, it is time for the spiciest pick of the week presented by Campbell's Chonky. So basically, we are predicting the spiciest player heading into the Sunday slate of games. So gentlemen, who is getting all that spice? Who we going with?
All right, Dad, busting out the spice rack here. It's been a tough last couple weeks for me because I made the mistake of tying spice to production in a way that was specific. And that's not what we're here to do. Spice is a vibe this week. We're going to try and go with the spicy vibe. And what's spicier, Dad, than having to see an ex that you just very publicly turned down with your new boo? And that's exactly what Shaquille Leonard is going to deal with this week in the Eagles and Dallas Cowboys game. Now, he just joined the Philadelphia Eagles this week. He was released, the former All-Pro, by the Indianapolis Colts a couple of weeks ago. And both the Cowboys and the Eagles, who are in need of some linebacker depth help, both offered their services. Shaquille Leonard ends up choosing the Philadelphia Eagles. And now, going into this week, Dad, the Eagles currently have 3 off-ball linebackers on their 53-man roster in Morrow, in Ben Van Sumeren, who has never played an NFL snap, and in Shaquille Leonard, who just got there. Now, we're not sure how much they're going to use him. He also hadn't been used that much in with the Colts this year, but he probably is going to get on the field because Philly needs some help in production there. And so what's he going to be able to offer them? Well, the bar is as low as it is in terms of the expectations of that particular position on the Eagles defense. And oh, by the way, how's it going to be like seeing it if the Dallas Cowboys come in there and beat you when you could have had a chance to be over there?
You know, it's all about how quickly you pick something up. Remember Kevin Byard, the Philly traded for him, and he didn't miss a beat, right? Got in there and learned the playbook as quick as he could. A smart player. Shaq Leonard the same way. So I have to imagine, if nothing else, there will be packages that he will be involved in. No doubt about it, because they do need that. Like, we keep talking about the middle of the field, and you know, when I'm up in the booth calling this game, that's what I'm going to be noting. We'll look for Jake Ferguson, the tight end for Dallas, in the middle of the field. Look for CeeDee Lamb doing a crossing route and catching the ball right between the hash marks, you know, getting some yards after the catch. Philly's been susceptible there. So what can be done about it is the big question for Philly.
It is very true. In the world post Josh Dobbs and really going back to Baker Mayfield last year, we have removed the excuses for players coming over at positions from getting on the field early on in games. You're absolutely right. So that is my spicy player of the week. Shaq Leonard, can he come in and impact this Philadelphia Eagles defense that desperately needs help at that space? And oh, by the way, can he do it against the other team he could have potentially joined after being released? Who is your spicy player, Dad?
Mine is going to be Justin Jefferson, back on the field this week. Minnesota takes on Las Vegas. Minnesota currently 6-6 and in the 6th slot for the playoffs. Last game that Justin played was October 8th. He has been out with that hamstring. He says he feels as good, and he said he was not getting back on the field until he was 100%. He feels he's as good as he did at the beginning of the year. Can run with speed, do all his cuts, been working with Josh Dobbs, obviously, in practice. So to me, we know what kind of receiver he is. He played in 5 games, averaged a little over, I think, 7 catches per game. You know he's going to be involved if he's on the field. So you want to talk, we talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. for Ohio State and what a difference he makes. Well, what a difference Justin Jefferson makes. You know, right now your leading receiver is your tight end who you traded for last year, and TJ Hawkinson. So how great would it be to sit there and have your Justin Jefferson back? Justin Jefferson played 5 games, Mike, and is still tied for 3rd in receptions on the team. I mean, he's played in 5 games. The other guys have played in 11 and 12 games. I mean, absolutely crazy of what he can bring for this team fighting for a playoff spot.
100%, you know, a 2-game skid now, the Josh Dobbs experience looking less cute to the point where Kevin O'Connell flirted with putting one of the other guys in there between Jaron Hall or the other backups. And now after this game, Dad, you know, we've talked about the Raiders have been sort of hard to peg after Antonio Pierce took over. But after this, you get the Bengals, and then you get the division to finish out the year. 2 matchups against the Lions with the Green Bay Packers, oh, by the way, sandwiched in between that. So Justin Jefferson getting back, going to go a long way to figure out if this team is also going to be one of those NFC NFC wildcard teams coming out of the North there. So that is our spicy players of the week heading into the NFL weekend. But Jesse, spicy in the NBA last night. We got some absolute banner performances from two of the biggest stars in the NBA, LeBron James and Tyrese Halliburton.
Yes.
Hell yeah, brother. So now, NBA in-season tournament finals are set. We got Lakers, we got Pacers battling it out in Las Vegas for the first ever NBA Cup. So LeBron afterwards, he was asked about playing in the in-season tournament. He basically said he never got to play in a Final Four in college and stuff, so this is really cool for him. So not just cool for us to watch, cool for the players to play in.
Yeah, it really is. And for LeBron James, we've talked about this. LeBron James always in the quest for Jordan. I heard the guys on Pardon My Take mention this. Michael Jordan never won an NBA in-season tournament. So food for thought there on LeBron James and what he has the chance to accomplish. Yeah. And Dad, on a night where we are rightly going to talk about, I think, what Tyrese Halliburton was able to do against the Milwaukee Bucks in the early game as he continues his star turn there. 15 assists in that game without a turnover. He's been on an incredible tear. I saw Malika Andrews tweet this from ESPN, that Tyrese Halliburton now has 3 career games with 25 points, 15 assists, and 0 turnovers all this season. That is the most all-time of those such games. So an incredible playmaker, clutch scoring down the stretch. You saw him hit the watch, a little homage to Dame time when he hit that dagger 3 that really started to put the game out of reach, but also taking incredible care of the basketball right now.
Yeah, you talked about that shot under a minute to go. They're up 5, 119, 114, and he pops a 3. And that is basically ball game there. He goes for 27, 7, and 15. Already, as we know, leads the NBA in assists at this point. He is something to watch. I thought Doris Burke, who was one of the analysts for the game, really broke it down well and said, this guy makes the best decision for the team. And a lot of times that's him not shooting the ball. It's him moving the ball. He had the one assist where he he crashed hard to the basket and did this loopy underhand throw to a player just over the outstretched hands of a defender to a player at the three-point line who dropped a 3. It was incredible. This tournament alone to get Tyrese Halliburton onto the stage of stardom has been worth it, because you listen, you love to hear what he has to say. You love his play right now, and quite honestly, man, the Pacers, they spread the scoring around. They're a fun team to watch, a team that we don't talk about when we talk about the East in Philadelphia and Boston and Milwaukee. And here's it will be interesting to see where they go with this and what they did in dropping Milwaukee. They beat Milwaukee in this game, so this was a game. The late game was the showtime, obviously, because you had LeBron James. That wasn't even a game. That was an absolute destruction. And LeBron just keeps proving it doesn't matter how old you are. Because I remember him talking about, he said, yeah, they say Father Time is undefeated. I'd like to give him one loss. Well, listen, you're going to go down as one of the greatest ever, but that's not going to happen. You're never giving Father Time a loss. It's just of how long you can make it. But what he is still doing at his age is absolutely incredible when he wants to take over a game.
He had that stretch in the second quarter where I think he hit 3 threes in a row, and the last one was a total heat check shot. And I've always said, when LeBron James gets into that mode, we know LeBron James as a consistent shooter has always been something of the conversation. When he does that, other team pack it in. Once you get that version of LeBron James, it's over. There's not much you're going to be able to do to stop it. Zion Williamson struggled last night. And so now if you're the NBA, I know people love saying this and trying to point to the TV at all. It really is perfect for the in-season tournament. We said this about the play-in tournament years ago when you got Golden State and you got the Lakers in it. Having LeBron in the final against a budding superstar is absolutely the best thing Adam Silver could have hoped for this.
Especially when Tyrese is bringing the ball down and there's LeBron saying, I'm now going to guard you, and let's see where this goes.
Who played great defense last night, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here's what the amazing thing, we talked about the $500,000 each player gets. What I didn't realize, and unlike the Olympics, remember the Olympics, the coaches do not get medals. Well, in this, the coaches get $500,000 each. So they're the ones that are probably more hopped up than the players. So that adds to it. You're probably going to get about 12 or 12.5 million in cash for this game that I still think needs to be laid in cash on the court before the game. But there's got to be coaches that are going to be like, man, what this is going to do for me to get $500,000 for this win.
I was going to say, Jon Rahm was talking about the money for his family. This actually kind of registers on the Richter scale with that. As the whole experience has been awesome, the atmosphere was great last night. Genuinely looking forward to a Lakers-Pacers in-season final. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Let's finish off the show and the week the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories send you off into the weekend. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and hopefully you can catch us live here Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on DraftKingsNetwork.com, DraftKings YouTube, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, all those great places here. Tell a friend. Let somebody know we're out here trying to make a great show for you guys each and every day. And if you missed any of it, you can check out our great guests like Isaiah Hodgins, the Giants wide receiver, Ross Tucker, our great friend from the Ross Tucker Football Podcast right here at the DraftKings Network, who's on the call for Army-Navy for Westwood One this weekend. You can catch all that wherever you get your podcast or right here on DraftKings YouTube when we get done with the show. Now, we will get to an egregious airline violation and CNBC trying to attack my lifestyle right after we tell you about a very comfortable lifestyle that you can lead with our friends at Wrangler. We're brought to you by Wrangler, jean shirts and jackets made for the ride of life. Be ready for cooler days and longer nights and styles that are going to keep you warm, comfy, moving, and looking great no matter where you are. You can wear Wrangler jeans literally anywhere, at work, out at night, playing a pickup game with your friends, or at home, watching the game on TV, comfy and built for all occasions. They are that durable. And there's a Wrangler shirt for every occasion. You can go the casual tees, the snaps and button-ups, or layer them together, get sassy, a little bit of both. And don't forget about the iconic Wrangler jackets. Dad, I know you would never forget about that, ever, because I'd smack you. When the weather starts to chill and you need to venture out, you're very skinny now, you don't have a lot of meat on your bones, Wrangler will keep you ready for anything in their outstanding jackets. Add some Wrangler to your getup with jean shirts and jackets that look great, fit great, and move great, so you're always ready for whatever life throws at you. And you can save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order when you use promo code GOJO15. That's GOJO15. Wrangler, for the ride of life. Guys, let's get to this. Tiger Woods back in the news for being jacked and a little bit better at golf lately. Apparently could be splitting with Nike, Dad. According to Front Office Sports, this is a distinct possibility that's on the table for one of the most productive partnerships I think we've ever seen between brand and player in sports. So how surprised are you by this, Dad?
It is surprising. You think it like a lifer, like Michael Jordan, still making hundreds of millions of dollars every year from Nike. Remember, Tiger's been with him since he was 20 years old in 1996. So he has made, obviously, hundreds of millions of dollars. I guess with Jordan, we could talk about $1 billion. So they stopped making golf clubs in 2016. Tiger's been playing with TaylorMades. Tiger's been wearing FootJoy shoes. And the thought is that TaylorMade, while they make some clothing, not as much, and other apparel, not as much as Nike, but could it be going that way? Could Tiger be going with TaylorMade and start to really help their apparel division explode, which it probably would. I don't know, compared to how it was with Nike when he was younger. It's a little different now. So what it would do, I'm not sure. I'm sure it would still bump them up. But boy, something I did not see coming. I just figured he was a lifer.
Yeah, I agree. So this one could change big time the landscape of attire that weekend warriors buy to try and emulate their favorite golfer. Someone could be wearing Sunday Reds with their friends, hacking it up on a Muni course in a different brand after this. We'll wait and see how that one goes. But Jesse, let's get to that and an attack on my lifestyle that I feel compelled to respond to.
Yeah, so a CNBC analyst has blamed the decline of families and households on gaming and Taylor Swift.
63% of young men are single, and that's the highest it's ever been. And 50% of those young men have no interest in dating, not even casually. And 30% of those men, or 30% of young men, say they have not had sex in over a year and don't seem to care. And so you have young men who don't want to date and young women who are spending their time really with Instagram moments, going to the Taylor Swift concert. I don't know if you've been to them. It's all filmed about yourself at the Taylor Swift concert. So
they're not getting married and building homes.
Okay, so this is they should at you next time, is what you said in the break.
Yeah, staring right at you.
Like I say, sports gambling and Taylor Swift are the reason why young men. First off, sexist report, assuming that only men bet on sports and only women are going to those Taylor Swift concerts. Shame on you guys there. You should be ashamed of yourself. Second off here, oh yeah, those are the things preventing people my age from buying homes. Not a financial crisis, not multiple housing crises, not a pandemic that sent interest rates into hell in the years coming off that. None of the normal things about the economy surrounding home buying or the inflation around the cost of most things in my lifetime. Nope, it's Taylor Swift and me wanting to bet on Iowa unders. Great job, CNBC. You guys nailed it.
Mike,
Idiots.
are you deflecting? Are you deflecting here?
Sounds like you need to get laid. Maybe you're one of the 30% here.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Guys, listen, the Iowa team isn't the only thing going under the sheets. Am I right?
Come on.
Confirmed not in the 30%.
Yes.
Yeah, listen.
Wow.
Confirmed.
Yeah, Mike wants everybody to know I'm not in that group. I am not in that group, right? Your mother's listening.
Folks, we're gambling and having sex. 2023 is great. That being said, guys, let's get to the third and address the real elephant in the room. I'm still reeling from that right now. Again, the notion of that. By the way, you know what? There is nothing sexier than a juicy Iowa under, all right? I've had an entire wonderful fall chasing that. Iowa unders have made me feel a way that no partner ever possibly could. So shame on CNBC for trying to kink shame all of us for the love that we feel with the Hawkeyes' complete disregard for offensive production, their love of punts and defense, absolutely despicable. It's time to get on to the third, though. Speaking of despicable.
Yeah, not the only thing missing offensive production, am I right? All right, so there's this guy who makes these videos. He's known for this, where he makes food in weird places. This is the guy, all right? You're looking at him. His latest video is titled Mile High Bathroom, and no, it's not going to be what you think next, garlic, shrimp, and mash. So this man I struggle to even call him that because what he's doing, the behavior he's exhibiting is more befitting of an animal, proceeds to make garlic shrimp and mashed potatoes in the airplane bathroom sink during a flight. So a couple things I'd like to note here. Number one, this is absolutely disgusting because we know how freaking gross planes are. Number two, he's got like a battery and then he's putting something in water. Like, this man is endangering the lives of everybody on this airplane.
I am amazed, and you're right on all that. You can't bring more than 3 ounces of a liquid on a plane. This man brought a battery with clips to be able to power this battery to put it in water in a sink. How the hell does he get that on a plane? But if I got 3.5 ounces of liquid, I'm banned. I mean, what the hell is going on?
TSA is shaking right now.
Honestly,
not even to
hot
the point,
seat
Jesse.
TSA.
Yes, seriously, because Jesse, you're right. Making food in the sink. This guy, if I ever see him on my plane and I see him walk into the bathroom, I'm putting something in front of that bathroom door and he's staying there the entire flight.
Oh, I'm finding the air marshal on the plane and I'm having this man arrested.
Now, I will say this. It is like certainly from an interpersonal standpoint on the plane, absolute psycho move. I don't even I don't even poop on planes anymore because I don't want to do that to my fellow passengers. I don't want to deal with the shame of having to walk out of the bathroom and see some little old lady who's about to go in there next and be like, hey, you might want to give that a couple of minutes there. Things aren't cute right now. Yeah. All that being said, because this is, gross and all that way, if you're on the plane and he offers you some, would you try it?
No! No! Do you see this guy? You don't accept anything from this guy.
All right, Mike, let's not judge a book too much by his cover because he's not that many standard deviation points away from me. I'm just saying, I feel like you got to do it for the plot.
No, I'm not saying judge a book by its cover. I'm saying this man, you saw the way he was eating it, right? With his hands, with the stuff. You think this guy turns to you and offers you a shrimp? Yeah. You should take it.
Could you imagine him picking it out with his hands and reaching his hand over and say, here, you want some? Mike, you know, you and I and our family, we are food people. You have eaten a donut that was stuck to a tire for 20 minutes. And ate it. But I'm not eating anything this guy offers. I don't want to be anywhere near this guy on a plane.
Thank you. Especially seafood.
I'm willing to hear both sides. Not about how he got there, but about the end result. If you enjoyed the end result of this, download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star rating in your bathroom shrimp recipe. Have a great weekend.
God.